My name's Akif Malik. I'm very honored to be here, and thanks to Shahab and Open. So basically, technology is transforming the world of sports right now, and sports technology is transforming events, experiences, leagues, teams, athletes, and fans. From impacting health and fitness to changing how you engage with sports, athletes, media, your friends and family, we are just getting started. Mobile, local, photo, videos, networks, location, big data, streaming media, social, analytics, digital payments, content, e-commerce, cloud infrastructure, wearables, sensors, and the Internet of Things. All of these hot topics of tech are also a hot topic of sports. From your smartphone to a wearable, you have more control, more access, and more choices, and more impact on the world of sports in your own experience. Going to a live sports event is unique and special, but most of the older venues were not designed for today's digital world or the pipeline of innovation that's coming. Here in Santa Clara, we are fortunate just a few short minutes of walk from here is a new Levi's Stadium, soon to be completed for the 49ers, as well as other sports and entertainment events. All at once, this innovative next-generation stadium is transforming Silicon Valley, the Bay Area, and the world of sports. So perhaps there is no better place to showcase how technology, innovation, and design can transform the world of sports than Silicon Valley. Before we introduce our guests, let's take a look at the new stadium.
Hello, this is Coach Harbaugh. You've heard us talk many times about the team, the team, the team. And as we move into our new home in Santa Clara, we want to invite you to join us in a continued pursuit of winning championships. We are saving your spot and hope that you continue to be a part of the San Francisco 49er team and the 49er way.
These are always special times to come out to the stadium and see this being built, because every day you come, there's a little bit more that's been done. Levi's Stadium is not just for 49er games. There's going to be Super Bowl 50, the Kraft Bowl, several international soccer games, and college football games, and concerts and events. It's really going to be a place that's going to be a showcase for a lot of different things. We've talked a lot about Levi's Stadium being the smartest stadium, being a software-driven stadium with high-density Wi-Fi for every person and in-seat delivery to every seat in the house, of food and beverage and merchandise. We've talked about all events and 49er games being powered by the sun, all of these really neat things, but all of it starts and none of it means anything without a seat. And so that's why today is a special day, because we're going to be showcasing the installation of seats, because you need seats to watch the games and the concerts and different things. And we've got Miranda and Steven here, longtime season ticket holders since 1971 at Kezar, that they get to be the recipients of actually witnessing their seats being installed. handful of moments in a stadium's development that really kind of capture everything of what it's about. Putting in the grass is one of those moments, there's something nostalgic and almost romantic about putting in a field, which is why you see all the helicopters flying around, which is why everyone's trying to get the sneak peeks of the pictures of the grass. And that's what, just even walking here for me, felt like a kid walking around. I wanted to throw a football around on the turf, but Matt won't let me. We've been working with West Coast Turf for a little over 20 years. Our relationship with them started in the '92 championship game at Candlestick Park. Now here we are at Levi Stadium putting in this Bandera Bermuda grass, which in addition to being a lot more green, in terms of actually looking green for a little bit longer in the season, but also needing 50% less water than your average football team's grass. It's also a little bit stronger. When Frank Gore makes those cuts on the turf, on the grass, or when the offensive linemen cut it up a little bit, it holds up its roots a little bit better, which is why we need to let it grow and live a little bit longer here before we can all go and play on it. But anyway, just wanted to welcome everybody here and enjoy this experience with us.
Inside the hole. Who's got it better than us? Nobody!
Okay, so just a quick few stats on the stadium, just some basics. A lot of people are wondering, it's 68,500 capacity, which will expand slightly for the Super Bowl. And compared to Candlestick Park, it is about twice the interior space as the previous stadium. Average concourse goes from 19 feet wide to 63 feet wide. There's 30 escalators instead of 6, 370 concession stands instead of 239. The high definition scoreboard is 10 times bigger, 200 feet wide by 48, and there's 2 of them. And there's 31,500 parking spaces. It's also the first stadium in the US, first football stadium to be LEED Gold certified, from a rooftop garden to solar power. So with that, please let me introduce my guests here. Lauren Hepler is the economic development reporter for the Silicon Valley Business Journal, where she covers topics including sports business, public policy, and the intersection of technology and society. She has reported extensively on the San Francisco 49ers' new Santa Clara Stadium and the ways data analytics and internet connectivity are changing professional sports business models. Lauren's past work has been published by national outlets such as Slate Magazine, Congressional Quarterly, and the campaign finance watchdog Open Secrets. Her original reporting has also been cited by the New York Times, Washington Post, and Politico. Kunal Malik has spent the last 2 years as the first chief technology officer for the San Francisco 49ers. In his role, Kunal led all technology efforts for the club as well as Levi Stadium. Kunal set the technology vision for the new stadium and built a talented team to execute on the vision. At the last Candlestick season, Kunal developed and tested a fully functioning prototype of an in-stadium mobile platform app with key features including instant replays and in-seat ordering. Kunal also developed and executed plans that will make Levi Stadium the most technologically advanced in the NFL. Most recently, Kunal led the development of a state-of-the-art data platform that will deliver key game day analytics and powerful data warehousing capabilities for the 49ers. Prior to joining the 49ers, Kunal led the creation of the IT department at Facebook, a department which he founded in 2007 and helped enable the growth of one of the world's leading companies. So please welcome Lauren Hepler and Kunal Malek.
Great. All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for sticking with us into the evening. Looking forward to talking more about the stadium, and I think everyone would be best served by just jumping into it. Kunal, when it comes to sports tech, one of the biggest questions right now is how professional teams in particular compete with the very comfy couches and the big screen TVs people have at home. And obviously a big element of all of this is trying to optimize the fan experience through personalization. I've heard you talking about this in the past as soon as someone walks in and their ticket is scanned. How could that possibly sort of play into this broader question?
So that is a $1 million question. I think everybody's grappling with that who has a venue. The challenge is in the next 5-10 years, will fans still come to the stadium to watch a game when you have the technology in your living room advanced enough where you can literally get the minutest detail as soon as it happens. Right now you have high definition. Let's say in 5 years you have 4K and then 8K. Why would you come to a real venue to see the game? So I think this is key. And when we think about these things and the fan experience in venue, it hasn't really evolved or changed over the last several years. It stayed the same, and you see that over and over again. And when it comes to technology in the fan experience, you'd be lucky if you get connectivity with your phone at a venue, especially if the venue's many tens of thousands of people, because high density Wi-Fi hasn't really shown proven results. So when we think about these things, one of the key things is to bring that experience together, to really innovate in that experience. And when I say that, and we take Levi's for instance, 70,000 fans almost coming to a venue. We're not looking to just provide one great experience to 70,000 fans. We want to create 70,000 unique experiences that the fans can enjoy. And this is interestingly, this is a classical Silicon Valley problem, because what we've seen is to solve this, to really sort of innovate in this space, you have to take a blank piece of paper and redefine and rethink what that fan experiences should be like and has to be like over the next several years as it iterates itself. And bringing that together is the key thing. Now, when we think about sort of ticketing and other aspects, fan experience to get personalized, you really have to interconnect these systems, which you're typically used to in your enterprise. When you've worked for any company that has a business, you have an ERP system, you have a CRM system, they are connected. This is revolutionary in sports. You talk about a ticketing system that is not connected to anything else. So to think about the future, one of the first things you have to do is interconnect systems. You can actually personalize that experience. You actually can go from one point to the next point, and it's a clean handoff. And when you think about tickets, and let me just take that example. Let's say you buy a ticket from StubHub or Ticket Exchange, which is a for NFL, which is a second market. And when you buy a secondary market ticket, not a season ticket, we have no idea who you are. You're just going to get that ticket. The holder of the ticket is the person who will sit in the seat. So when you think about it, you come and scan your ticket. There's a lot of information that is available that clubs can use to really personalize that experience. First, you know the gate you entered in. Second, the seat, or the ticket, has the section row seat number. So now you know two things. You know the gate the guest is entering, the fan is entering from. You know the seat that this fan's going to sit. You can pretty much hypothetically know what path this fan is going to take from the gate to the seat. Third thing you know is what time they entered the stadium. Let's say they entered 90 minutes before kickoff. Now you're in pregame. Think of all the things you can do to personalize that experience and make that experience awesome. Because there's so many things from the path this fan is going to take to get to the seats can be personalized. In addition to that, we already know if you're sitting in this section row seat number, we know which concession stand you're most likely going to eat in. Now I can give real-time data to the concession stand supervisor saying, hey, in this section you have these many people who have arrived, these many people who have eaten, at this rate they're arriving at, so for the next 30 minutes you make sure that you can prepare food at this pace. and the food is always fresh and good when you go buy it, and also there's no lines. So when you think about all these things, you're trying to do two things. One is you're trying to compete with the couch. In your living room, you have access to food, you have access to beverages, you go to your fridge, you take them out. That should be normal behavior in stadiums too, where you order your hot dog and your Coke, and it comes to your seat.
Right.
Very normal behavior. This is basic stuff that stadiums should look at doing. The second thing is you are at the game because you want exclusive access. You are there, you're the one, you literally have the bragging rights when you buy a ticket that you were there when that happened. And providing that exclusive experience requires that clubs should create content that they cannot get anywhere. Give fans an experience they cannot get anywhere in the world, and they'll keep coming back to games.
How do you keep focus then? Big data obviously is a little bit of cliche at this point in Silicon Valley. How do you determine which things are most crucial for managing this huge game day operation?
That's a wonderful question. So when you think about big data in sports, there's many different paradigms you can think it in. And Lauren, what you asked was game day. So let's just focus on game day. How can big data move the needle on game day? You know what's interesting about game day is that the questions you're going to ask to create awesome fan experience actually are really simple. You would ask questions like, hey, I want to know the average delivery time to my fans in this section. Is it above the norm, below the norm? I want to know how many people have entered a certain section and have arrived, and what rate are they arriving at? You want to know what's the most popular items being sold in specific concession stands around the stadium so you know how you're doing on inventory. Basic questions. List me this, sum me that, tell me what's popular, list the top 5. What that means is what you're going to do with all the data sources that you have in a stadium, you would instrument them for real-time data and bring it into a system that can handle real-time reporting. And you'll have these dashboards that'll increment themselves every second. So you would have all this construct working so you can and you customize this for the supervisor of the concession stand, the stadium operation vice president, to the guy who's running security. For instance, think about this. What is the section that has consumed the most alcohol? If you know the answer to that, what are you going to do if you're the head of security? You're going to make sure that, if there's nobody intoxicated, there's nothing bad that happens in that section. There's so much that you can do, and these are simple questions, really simple, basic questions that you want to answer. So big data can move the needle if you can create real-time dashboards that answer these key questions that help create awesome fan experience.
Okay. What about other potential sorts of data sources, like wearables are obviously, there was just a panel before this about that, in terms of, especially when we're talking about this area of exclusive entertainment, people maybe wanting to know what's going on up to the minute with their favorite player. What sort of potential do you see there?
When you think about live sports, so let me just, before I answer that question, let me just set this paradigm really clearly. So people are used to second screen experience, and when you're watching TV, you've had apps that give you that augmented experience. The nice thing with that is that the TV is not real time. Any production that is done has people editing, modifying it, and that all takes time. And by the time you receive it, it's either several seconds, minutes, hours, days, months behind, depending on what kind of production it is. For live sports, it is normally, if you look at the TV, and if I've done this many times, I've been at a game and I look at the TV and I'm counting like, okay, 1, 2, 3, and then typically like average 10, 15 seconds behind.
Right.
That is not the case when you're looking at live sports. So one of the things that, think about wearable, think of any technology, you have to build it for real time. So let's take an example. So let's say we're playing, Kaepernick makes a big pass to Davis. So it's a 44-yard gain. The ball is snapped, and the play is over. What are you going to do? You want to see that big play again because that was awesome. And if it doesn't happen in the next 5 seconds for you, you're going to lose interest because an average play in NFL, in football, is about 6 to 8 seconds. And if you are 30 seconds behind, you're probably in a different drive. And the engagement on that play, the freshness of that play starts to die, and you'd be less interested in going back and seeing that play. So that's one really key point: is any technology, whether it's wearable or mobile or something else, has to construct itself in real time.
Right.
The second piece is that hardware will keep evolving. So, today we have a bracelet that does a certain thing. Tomorrow it might be your glasses. Then after that, it might be something that your watch has. iOS or Apple might come up with a product that just completely changes the game. Hardware is going to be a commodity. It's going to keep changing its shape, and you cannot be focused on one proprietary hardware. So the key is, can you build a platform that is sustainable, that is real time, that can give you that engagement? And we've been looking at a number of things to do that. Right now, our focus has been solely on mobile, and I've spent a lot of time in building mobile platforms that can integrate with anything. And whether it's your watch, and you're watching a piece of content on your phone, and then you want to watch it on your watch, yes, that is possible. The key thing is thinking about platforms in a way that it doesn't matter what hardware you use, what fans bring to the stadium, it should work on whatever hardware they bring. So that's sort of the key.
Okay.
And wearables is in its sort of infancy stage, where there's a lot of gimmick, there's a lot of coolness. I think the evolution itself will iterate to really highly productive and interesting use cases. And I think you would see from one-way type wearable sort of entertainment, where the wearable is sending information out and giving sort of stats or something like that, to a two-way engagement. So.
Okay.
I think the future is really, really awesome for wearables.
Interesting. Okay. So I'm also interested in this general idea of sort of a team's intellectual property. Like in the old days, you had the leather-bound playbook that you could tote around. Now there's this whole concept of e-playbooks. And so there are concerns about security there on both ends, like getting your notebook stolen, getting your tablet stolen. How do you think about sort of teams inculcating themselves to this sort of threat, or at least being prepared if something does go wrong?
I have to say that my first impression of learning how manual certain things were in clubs was eye-opening. I would frown at them and say, "Why is this manual? We're in 2014. These things are just automated. I'm not used to getting binders and documents." And what I'd say is, I was impressed in how well these things have run in the traditional manner. So one of the reasons the technology has not really infiltrated itself that significantly is, guess what? There wasn't a problem to solve. Now what's happening is, there is an administrative nightmare to keep that process up and running. So there's a huge amount of cost. So what clubs are doing is basic stuff, which is, hey, instead of printing binders every single time the playbook changes, let's just put it on the digital format so that changes can be pushed, versus I have to reprint everything the night before and make sure every player has it. So that's just basic stuff. And when you think about sort of these things, they're evolving themselves slowly. What I see happening in this space is that coaches and players need a platform. And the platform doesn't have much of, super duper functionality needs. It's pretty basic stuff. It's like, I want my playbook, I want my coaching notes, I want to be able to push these coaching notes to me. There are interesting use cases where I can see if a player opened a playbook. How many players have actually opened the hard binder? But now with the digital format, I actually know who's seen it. So these are some basic benefits for coaching. But ultimately, I think these platforms will combine playbook communication, where you're telling players to come at a certain time, calendar. So you have training at this time. We're going to do optional stuff here. There's going to be other things happening later on. Especially when you travel in away games, the calendar is completely changed. So all coaches and players need is a robust communication platform that takes care of all these things. And in addition to that, it has all the playbook and all the collaboration that comes with it, and the security that we would need to ensure that nothing gets out. This is all secret stuff, and we can hold it confidential.
Okay, got it. We're going to open it up for questions in just a minute. I did want to ask one other thing, and there's this broader context here. There's what the pro sports teams are working on, but some of that I know there are startups that I talk to who are trying to pitch you guys. They want to get their products in. Just briefly, do you mind giving us sort of a few interesting areas you think that either startups or bigger companies are looking at? Because sports tech is just such a broad field with so much activity right now.
Yeah, and I'd say that there's the incumbent dominating players that are really big, and it's they've created enough barriers to entry, so it's not easy to go,
Right.
filtrate into those areas. But then I'm seeing so much of like smaller companies innovating. For instance, it's interesting to see that you guys are let's say you're at a venue, and the people at the back want to sit in the front. And all seats are numbered, so you can only sit in your designated spot. And you're at the venue, like, hey, I see that seat opened. Why can't I upgrade my seat? I'm happy to pay for it. I want to upgrade my seat. I've seen startups coming and evolving themselves because the incumbents have not created that functionality. So companies have come in and built a simple mobile app where you can upgrade your seat in the venue.
Right.
I've seen a lot of wearable technologies where companies are building bracelets and wristbands to go to a venue, and then you can have all the sensory information, which is movement and sound and all those things, which then can be used for entertainment. Like I can say that this section and this section we're gonna compete against how loud they are. So let's see which ones actually are louder. So with the wearable technology, you can have very interesting engagement with fans and I've seen a few companies who are doing that kind of stuff where they are going into venues and creating that engagement. Same thing with concerts, right? So if I can tell you that this section is really dancing, this section isn't, and I can give you real time as a concert performer that you really need to do something to make this section really sort of jump out of their seat.
Right.
What are you going to do? And then you have all these things where it's not about not knowing what's happening because there's so many lights coming at you, but you can actually use that information to create better fan experience. Those are some of the areas that I'm seeing a lot of interesting development. And lastly, I think a lot of the innovations happening on the mobile device. People are actually taking on big incumbents. Like I've seen new point of sale systems trying to get into the space of venues, which has never happened in the last 5 years. This last few years, I've seen that new companies have popped up and they're building POS systems. Very simple, basic concept, but with a full stack of APIs that you can actually integrate to versus the incumbents who don't really have a full stack of APIs. They're the old client-server technology built on Microsoft that never built for the modern architecture.
Okay, got it. Well, I think we've just broached the very tip of this massive subject, so let's open it up. Who has questions? Oh, 1 second. We've got mics coming around.
How has social media affected sports?
I was wondering if somebody would ask me this question just like a few minutes ago.
You may have some context in social media.
It is funny. I think I've had this question asked to me by my boss, my boss's boss, everybody that I've spoken to is like, hey, what are you going to do for social? And, my simple answer is, social sites like Twitter, Facebook, Google+, they've all done a tremendous job for you to go to a venue and upload photos and just be social. Where social plays an interesting role with live sports is using it to create better engagement. For instance, I can say that Lauren post something on Facebook that she got a hot dog delivered to her. So I can, as a venue owner, I can use that to promote the fact that more people should order hot dogs in their seat. Right. That's one of the examples. The second thing is engagement with fans. So you are a fan of a club because you are proud, you feel exclusive, and that pride makes you feel like the club should know you, and you are all about making them the best, the most awesome club in the world. So having said that, social engagement really gets fans involved. A lot of clubs, including the Cowboys, what they've done is they ask questions to their fans on social sites asking, hey, what should we do in the halftime show? should we do this? Should we do this? And then they get, feedback. So there's a lot of like full round circle that happens with social. And I have to tell you, like, content that is being created by a lot of the clubs doesn't go anywhere. The distribution channels aren't that great with traditional sources like websites. You have to leverage social networks to get that content more viral. So everything from getting content viral to marketing to getting that engagement higher.
Okay. A lot of intersection. Interesting.
Hi, how is the fantasy experience going to be integrated in the new stadium? The fantasy sports.
Yeah, so the fantasy sports, and there's an interesting. I don't know if you followed the Yahoo sponsorship that we had. That is focused on creating a space in the stadium that was originally focused on the fantasy sports, and there'll be a lounge and everything. And I think Yahoo has done a tremendous amount of job around fantasy sports. All we're trying to do is enable the most popular platforms to come and be available at the stadium. The basics is you have. If you follow fantasy sports and you are on Yahoo or you're NFL, you generally don't even have connectivity to do this basic stuff at the stadium. So if connectivity is solved, like some of these platforms are actually doing a great job. And then if you can integrate with, displays and make you feel like, you're in that experience, that's what we're trying to do, is just enhance the experience. We're not trying to recreate the wheel here, because we feel like these technology companies have done a fabulous job trying to create fantasy experience.
Makes sense.
Hi, Kunal. My name is Omar. I have a question. How and why you joined 49ers?
Really good question.
Yeah.
So I had left Facebook because I felt I did everything I wanted to do at Facebook, from founding the technology team, IT team there, doing a lot of things around data, applications, building tools, running infrastructure and all those kind of things. And I reached a point where the problems were there, but they're much smaller in impact. And I had basically, realized that I come to work and I can find some big issues to go nail. And I felt this was a good time for somebody else to come run the show and for me to take a year off. And that's what I decided to do. And I posted on Facebook that I was leaving. And the second week that I had left, the president of the 49ers saw my Facebook post. We had lunch, and that turned into this dream idea of like what this stadium could be. And he and I were dreaming for like an hour at lunch, and we realized that we both like equally loved the whole idea of in other words, redefine the way the world consumes live sports. That idea was so enticing that it didn't really, occur to me that I'll be working again. I was back in the office, putting my innovation hat on and said, let's go solve this problem. It's difficult, but not impossible.
Was this former President Gideon Yu, who's also from Facebook?
That is correct. We worked together at Facebook. He was the CFO there.
Great. Other questions? I think I saw a few other hands. Great.
I know you briefly alluded to this, but I just was wondering if you could expand on how the rest of the organization has grown to accept big data analytics, and if the front office has been open to any of these analytics as well.
Great question. So I think there's the high level of this is going to be there's certain types of big analytics that are pretty well solved by the league when it comes to player stats, and their sources that provide you the vital stats, player performance. When you look at draft, we don't recreate the wheel there. We're just accepting data sources and putting all this stuff together. When you think about the front office is focused on business. So, things that they would ask is how we're doing in terms of retail. One of the interesting things that I saw was that other sources, including NFL, sold more 49er gear than 49ers themselves. Why is that? And we used big data to change that equation. In the first 1 year, the front office made a number of changes in how they sold retail, which increased sales by 50%. Actually, I'm actually being conservative. It was a lot more than 50%. So we use big data for everything. We use it for retail. We use it for in-stadium experience. We've built real-time dashboards that I was talking about for in-game experience. We've also built, if you guys are familiar with this technology called Hadoop, we use Hadoop for the heavy lifting in terms of like building data warehousing and really correlating data, because I have data sources for online sales of merchandise. Also, we have it in stores and then in stadiums. So you have to like bring all this data together. And real time is a different stack because it's all in cache. You need to get performance within a second.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. I think we have time for probably one more question. Is anyone maybe in the back? I see a couple hands.
Hi. So
Hi.
you mentioned the solar panels in the rooftop garden on top of the stadium. I was wondering whether or not that kind of technology actually makes business sense, or whether it's still more of a public image issue.
Okay, great question. So those solar panels that are at the roof deck, it's a green deck, and you probably saw images of that. And they're also existing on the walkways, the bridges that go into the stadium. The collective power they create over a span of 1 year actually gives us net zero to grid for all home games. So we're the only stadium in the United States that can say that because of this, we are net zero to the grid for all home games, which is pretty awesome.
Mm-hmm. So maybe a little beyond PR. All right. Great. Well, I think, do we have one more question? One more question? Is that okay with you?
Sure.
No? Great.
Sure.
A quick question. I'm an entrepreneur, started 4 or 5 different companies, recently sold one for a significant sum, and I was sharing discussions with another entrepreneur friend, and he told me a little story about how they discovered their best idea. Basically, they went in to pitch to a CTO like you about this idea they'd spent 3 months working on. And after they pitched it, the guy, CTO like you, said, that sounds really interesting, it sounds very useful, but you know what? This other problem that I have is really one that's giving me a headache. And they said, wait a minute, what was that other problem you said? It had nothing to do with their idea they'd been researching for 3 months. He said, well, the other problem is this other thing. They said, okay. So they went back and they changed their entire idea to what that guy said. And then they built the entire company off of that, sold it for about, it was only 15, 16 million in about 2 years. So my question to you is, being a CTO, if somebody comes to pitch you an idea of a company, and you're saying, okay, that's nice, but the real problem I have is this other thing. What is the real problem that you have right now? This other thing that maybe is not yet addressed.
Very clever
There must
question.
be something there
Oh my God.
that, yeah, you've talked a lot about all the things that you had problems and now you've found solutions for, and that's great.
Yeah.
But
What's the
what
white
I'm
whale
more
that's still
interested
there?
in is the problems that you have that you have not found solutions for. So you've solved this
I'm
net
tempted
zero.
to. Sorry,
Yeah, what's
I'm
your
actually
answer?
tempted to give you a slightly longer answer, because I find it really fascinating with the way you describe. I have to tell you, like all my life and every sort of venture I've been at, you cannot build an idea in vacuum and expect it to be big. It doesn't happen. If it doesn't connect with the real world, if it doesn't create that significant impact, it's not going to be big. And the only way that I found that worked in my case is we did 2 things with the big stadium. One is that every single idea, every single requirement, I would go in and we would debate. I think you named Gideon Ju, the CFO at Facebook, who was also president at the 49ers and co-owner. So Gideon and I and Parag and the person that you saw in the video, the 3 of us would lock ourselves in a room and we would be debating to the point where anything I bring up or anything they bring up, we have to poke holes. It's our job to poke holes and say, are you working on the right problem? Is this the problem we're looking to solve? So it had to be that the collective wisdom was not just me in the shop thinking of like, hey, this is how you create technology. No, it had to be the complementary knowledge of what Gideon had and what Parag had, and three of us would like literally do this for days. We would lock ourselves in a room and we would debate before we start working on it. The second thing is that when I looked at the timeline for the stadium, I was fortunate enough when I joined, I still have a shovel in my office that we did groundbreaking with. And we had 2 years to build this stadium, which I think is super aggressive. So the way we thought about this, and biggest thing that you learn from, is by real world examples. So we accelerated the timeline and in stealth mode tested majority of everything that we wanted to do at Candlestick at the last year. This was not advertised, but we had to learn somehow in a way that, you know, you cannot recreate 70,000 fans coming into stadium and how they would behave. It's raining, you're standing, what is the Wi-Fi going to do? How many times are you going to pull a mobile device out of your pocket? I have no idea, I cannot predict that. And weather conditions change, the game is different, and I've seen from game to game, the fan experience is different. So there's no other better way to do this unless you test it in real life. And as far as ideas go, I would have loved if somebody had built a platform that allowed us to innovate on fan experience. I would buy it right away. An area that I feel is key is building a mobile platform that can bring content about the game. Why are you going to the stadium again? It's the game. Game is the hero, right? And why would you not go? Well, the inconvenience. Okay, all the other amenities. So if you take the exclusivity and you take all the utility aspects and you build a mobile platform that can try to solve problems around operational management, delivery, making content real time, delivering that content to your mobile device and making that experience really awesome, I think venues would go buy that. That's a money idea. And when you go macro level, there's a lot of small little opportunities you'll find in this. You don't have to build the whole stack. There may be smaller opportunities you'll find where you're providing either the real-time content or you're providing, hey, this is how you do in-seat delivery, or hey, this is how you do variables, and you can create like interesting engagement with your fans.
See if there's a rush on patent applications for fan experience platforms. That'll be good. Great. Well, thank you so much for your time, Kunal. This has been great.
Thank you.